Yes, we are live and I'm starting the recording. Yes, Swati madam, proceed.
Yep. Thank you so much. It is most appropriately said that yoga does not change the way we see things, it transforms the person who sees. Good morning and a hearty welcome to all the respected dignitaries, resource persons, and participants. I, on behalf of Santaji Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur, welcome you all to the international webinar on physical fitness and yoga during and after the pandemic, being organized by the Department of Physical Education of the college. The current situation of pandemic has enforced certain limitations due to which the proceedings are being conducted virtually, but yet it has failed to dampen the spirit of the organizers and the institution. In the inaugural ceremony, we are privileged to have Honorable Dr. Sanjay Dubey Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur, as the inaugurator. It is a proud moment for all of us to have H. Lucy Guest from Oxford University, London, and Dr. Kases from Poland as the expert speakers. The current situation demands good immunity to fight widespread disease, and yoga has proved its benefits in strengthening the immune system. It can also help us in fighting infections by boosting immune system, reducing stress, and strengthening our bodily functions and systems. Today we have among us two eminent resource persons who will enlighten us regarding physical fitness and yoga. Now I would like to invite Dr. Priya Banzari ma'am, Honorable Principal of the college and the organizer of the international webinar, to deliver the introductory speech.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you, Dr. Swati. A very good morning. Namaskar. I take immense pleasure in welcoming all the guests, speakers, inaugurator in today's international webinar organized by Shri Santaji Shikshan Vikas Sanstha's Santaji Mahavidyalaya. We feel very proud to present an international webinar to all those who have joined us today, 22nd June, because we are in our Golden Jubilee celebrations. And what better than this international webinar on yoga? I take this opportunity to welcome the inaugurator of today's program, Dr. Sanjay Dubey Sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University, Nagpur. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, we have guest speakers also with us today in the form of expert speaker Lucy ma'am, which we recently introduced ourselves, and of course second expert speaker Dr. Kaizen Steve. So it is indeed pleasurable. Yesterday, 21st June, we all celebrated the International Yoga Divas, Yoga Day, and we had connected ourselves through online mode only. But keeping that in mind, keeping the pandemic situation, we have started this particular international webinar. Now I will take this chance. Is my voice echoing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
One second. I don't know what's the reason. Manish sir, can you speak?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, start.
Yoga was started centuries ago. Yeah. And the very benefits of practicing yoga is a way of living.
Ma'am, any other device there around you?
No other device.
Yeah, ma'am, start.
Yoga? No, sir. Manish sir.
Yes, ma'am, there's no problem from here, I guess.
Okay, let's go ahead. So yoga was an ancient discovery of India. popularity even especially during the times and especially during lockdown. It became a powerful for everyone to get connected. Because government had stay indoors to save. So online mode was the best way to connect. Whether it was a yoga mat, or whether it was in yoga studio. Online mode was welcome. People preferred staying connected to yoga. And that was the big nevertheless, there was a pandemic, and people got affected due to COVID. And when withered a little, post-COVID made it possible that people could rely on yoga because COVID gave them long time like breathlessness, fatigue, or blood clots. And yoga helped them to realize their strength, balance. It was all due to yoga. And hence topic was post-COVID times and yoga. I think I had to a little more. This echoing is not going. I will give my best to webinar. And all the best acknowledgement to Sanjay who made this successful event happen. All the guests who have joined us today are in one way or the other connected to us. Due to this pandemic time has made this connection possible, and this COVID times have also made us realize the importance of our ancient science, yoga, which is followed all over the world in large numbers. Just as I was telling that maybe in a studio or in an online mode, it gives so much pleasure to get connected with it. Post-COVID, it is a boon because many exercises like pranayam, which are basically breathing exercises, have helped the patients. As doctors say, nearly 10% of post-COVID patients have these long haul symptoms, and it helps them if they practice yoga and pranayam exercises. Even WHO has recommended use of yoga for keeping stress-free, tension-free during such pandemic times. I myself, a post-COVID, regularly follow yoga, pranayam for my well-being, for my wellness, and of course, for making this particular science, which we all have to follow, yoga, a very, very lively thing, which we have to make it in a daily practice. Rest the speakers will throw light on this particular yoga during pandemic times. I, as a principal, welcome all the expert speakers today. Welcome Pro VC sir and all the teachers and delegates who have joined with us today, 22nd June 2021 for this international webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It has always been a treat listening to you. Now may I have the honor to call upon Dr. Sanjay Dudhe sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, Rashtrasant Tukroji Maharaj Nagpur University, to inaugurate the webinar and grace the occasion by delivering his address. Sanjay Dudhe sir.
I request all the other dignitaries to kindly keep their mics on the mute. Yes, sir. Proceed. Sir, your mic is muted.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Now you are audible. Yeah. So your camera is off, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible, but your camera is off, sir. Please on the camera, sir.
One camera चालू आहे.
Yeah.
Hello?
Your camera is still off, sir.
आवाज येत आहे? Hello? चालू आहे. चालू आहे. Camera चालू आहे.
Yes, it is on now, sir. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Rasanta Tuklaji Maharaj, Nagpur University, my greetings to organizer Dr. Priya Banjari Madam, Principal of Santaji College, and organizing secretary Dr. Sanjay Khadatkar sir, Director of Physical Education, Santaji College, Nagpur. My greetings to the expert speakers and all the participants present here. First of all, I would like to congratulate Banjari Madam and Khadatkar sir for organizing such a wonderful and important webinar on topic physical fitness and yoga during and after COVID-19 pandemic, in which the expert speakers would address the topics such as calming the mind through yoga and optimal peak performance through proper diet and Ashtanga Kriyas. Such an important webinar will be beneficial to each and every participants in all aspects of their life. Having said that, yoga was of utmost importance from the time immemorial. Yoga is a light which one lit will never dim. Yoga is not a goal to achieve, but a way of life. Earlier, yoga was done as a daily routine practice, although now people are getting more aware once again due to the huge COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has taught many things. The real meaning of health is wealth. Health is much more important than wealth because money loss can be earned again, but health loss will never come back. Being a fitness point of view, regular exercise is an important part of staying healthy and keeping your weight in check. Not only does keep your lungs and heart healthy, but it strengthens your muscles and bones. Mounting studies also show that regular physical activity significantly reduce the risk of diseases, including cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, cancer, and other diseases. If you don't have a time to go to gym, a 30 minutes walk 5 days a week will do, says the CDC. You may also take to outdoor games or sports or cycling as ways to exercise and to make your life healthy and better. One of the benefit of physical fitness through physical activity also aids in increasing your life expectancy. WHO studied that physically active people live longer than their less active counterparts. The Lancet Medical Journal said that 1 in every 10 premature deaths due to lack of exercise.
Sir, your mic is off, sir. Sir, your mic is off. Sir, your mic is off. Khalatkar sir, can you please call sir?
Earn
Yeah,
our
yeah.
health by ourselves through daily practice of yoga and other exercises to be physically fit. The pandemic has also taught us that humanity is still intact. Help others as much as you can. Share your happiness, share your smile, kill the ego, because a happy person in the mind will automatically be fit physically. So take some time to make your soul happy through yoga. Yoga is a union of mind and body in the present. Yoga is not a religion, but it is a science, and science of well-being, a science of youthfulness, a science of integrity body, mind and soul. Yoga adds years to your life and life to your years. So let us make a promise of practicing yoga religiously to keep your body in the best form and your mind at peace. I hereby declare that the webinar has been successfully inaugurated and hold my words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I extend my heartfelt thanks to you, who you have, despite because of the busy schedule, you have honored us with your presence.
Thank you, madam.
Now I hand over the charge of further proceedings to Dr. Sanjay Khalatkar, sir, Director, Department of Physical Education, Santaji Mahavidyalaya, Nagpur. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Swati madam. Very good morning, all of you. Hello.
Hello.
Very good morning to one all. First of all, I welcome all to this international webinar, Physical Fitness and Yoga during the after COVID-19, which is extremely relevant in this pandemic situation. We have with us our principal, Dr. Priya Banjari madam of Santaji Mahavidyalaya. I warmly welcome you, madam. We have with us our expert speaker, H. Lucy Guest. I welcome you. H. Lucy Guest, her profile is born in UK. She graduated from Oxford University, UK with Bachelor of Masters with Honors. Education, Sampurnananda Sanskrit Vishwavidyalaya, Varanasi, PhD Ancient Sanskrit Grammar 2013 present. Subject Patanjali Mahabhas Acharanam. Ancient Grammar Acharya, MA. Specialization Patanjali Mahabhashyam. Ancient Grammar Shastri, BA. Specialization Patanjali Mahabhashyam. Gold medal, first place of all subject in entire university. University of Oxford's BA Honours and MA Honours Metallurgy and Science and Materials. Then experiences, former Vice Chairman of the WOSI, that is World Organization of Student and Youths. Founder of Yoga Mission UK. Involvement in certificate course, yoga teachers training retreats of yoga school Ronwan Deerpost in the Netherlands for Suniman and Dutch yoga teacher trainers. Yoga intensive for students from UK, Brazil, Netherlands, Thailand, and US. Then Vice President of European Equity Cells and Global Equity Cells, London, UK. European Equity Specialized Associate Morgan London, UK. Summer Associate, Goldman Sachs, London, UK. Then public speaking experiences, the Dharma of Dying Vichar, Manthan, UK, 2021. The Power of Yoga Talk, UK, 2020. International Yoga Festival, Holland, 2020. Then Sadhana Yoga Workshop, France, 2020. The Five Tattva series, Moderate Indo-Brazilian Association, 2020. Vichar Manthan, can the oldest living tradition shape tomorrow's world? Leicester, UK. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, Purdue University, Indian Police, USA, 2018. Bharatiya Sanskrit and Yoga Mandir, Washington, DC, USA, 2018. Bharatiya Sanskriti and Yoga Mandir, Pittsburgh, USA, 2018. And last but not least, Bharat and its traditions, Keepers Hill School, United Kingdom, 2017. May I request our expert speaker, respected H. Lucy Guest. Over to H. Lucy Guest. Thank you.
Pranam. Thank you very much. I'd like to start with a prayer. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Pranam, and I'm very grateful to Santaji Mahavidyalaya Nagpur today for inviting me to talk about yoga in the COVID and post-19 situation. And particularly I'll be talking about calming the mind with yoga today. I'm very grateful to the organizer, Dr. Priya Wanjari ji, the principal of this lovely college in Nagpur. And of course, Dr. Sanjay Kalatkar ji for inviting me. And really wonderful that the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sanjay Durdev ji, was able to join to us. And I also look forward to listening to my fellow guest, and forgive me for pronunciation, but Dr. Christoph Steck. And my pranams to all the other faculty, gurus, teachers, and students who are attending today's program. I've been asked to talk about calming the mind through yoga today. And I wanted to start back in my childhood because you heard that I was at Oxford University. Whilst I was at Oxford University and in my childhood, I was a prolific sportsman person. Oxford University is an internationally renowned university for sports prowess. And I actually represented my university in 5 different sports and was the secretary of all sport, not just at Oxford, but of Oxford and Cambridge. I represented Oxford, London, and Cambridge at hockey, right up to the national level I played. And during my university time, that would involve 3 hours physical training per day. So you can understand that's a very serious physical education related activity. But having done all of that training, having had all of that experience, the extraordinary thing is that I was never as fit and healthy as when I started yoga. And so I'll be introducing you to yoga today in the way that I've been taught, that changed my life, that brought me mental, egotistical, and intellectual stability that brings health. Health meaning swatishtati, stable within yourself. So when we talk about physical education, we first need to understand the word education. Educare, educe. It's coming from the Latin to mean to bring out from inside. So bringing out from the inside. And when we talk about physical, as the Pro-Vice Chancellor mentioned, we have 3 bodies: the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. And we cannot bring a healthy state into the physical body without combining the effects of the subtle and the causal. And with that, I'll bring you into my PowerPoint presentation that I've prepared for you. And I hope very much you enjoyed it. I very much seek to bring you the scientific basis of the Shastras, putting it into practice, and so that you can see how it calms the mind, what it is about it that calms the mind when we practice yoga. So when we talk about that, we first need to understand that yoga is for everybody. There's no divisions of caste, color, creed, religion, country, age, or gender. Yoga is a unique practice, a unique physical and subtle and causal practice that's open to anybody who simply wants to try it. It requires no belief system whatsoever, and it in itself shows you why it works. And it's not something new. It's something that today is as useful as it was 10,000 years ago. And in every generation, it seems like new knowledge, it seems like practical knowledge, and yet it's simply something that's repeated time and time and again. So much so that if we look at the Mahabharatam tells us that Sankhya Darshan was introduced by Kapila, and that Yoga Darshan was introduced by Hiranyagarbha, who's first talked about in the Rig Veda. This is how old that we know now yoga is. And it's important to be authentic to the traditions because we get all of that energy of the traditions coming in our practice. And one of the big things in life that people struggle with that is causing mental disturbance is the inability to accept situations in life. And whilst I know this is a philosophical concept, I think it's very important because acceptance of where we are in life, realizing that what we're facing in life is actually a very small part of the whole universe. When we say like Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is a family, but Kutumbak also means a very small part. And so those programs that we think in life are so very big, especially when at the most difficult times of COVID, they seem to be insurmountable physical and mental difficulties that we were facing. But when we put our life in context again and realize that life is just like a river flowing through between two banks, one of birth and one of death, it helps us to put our individual life in context. And we also are told something that happens in every generation for every single person, that there are three kinds of pain. One is adibhotic. For example, COVID is an example of an adibhotic dukh, pain, because whilst collectively as a society we're experiencing, it doesn't affect everybody equally. And so that is adibhotic. Adidevic is when we have, for example, a tufan or tornado or an earthquake, which affects everybody in its path. And adhyatmic is that separation from yourself, that disintegration, that lack of unity between you and your real self. And this is a real thing. The Pro Vice Chancellor actually alluded to this in his talk, and I'll come on to that in a short while. So let's start with, what is yoga? In Sanskrit, we learn that words and their meanings are eternal. And the words of yoga are defined in Panini's dictionary of verbs, of which there are 2,000 verbs. And this is yujang samado, yujir yogi. Now, people mostly take this yujang samado in a very esoteric meaning, but I want to strip it down to what actually that word samadhi means. Samadhi. Sama buddhi. Sama meaning stable, balanced, and dhi buddhi meaning intellect. Samadhi is also talking about your state of consciousness of a stable intellect. This is not such a far away thing. And to have peace in life, we need to have that level of consciousness of that stability. And Yujir Yogi, referring to the union of what, again, that integration of you with your real self, joining to Paramatma, Param Brahma, which is your real being. Now, Patanjali said yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. This is a philosophical text. However, it is also a scientific text. Taimani actually titles his book Science of Yoga, and I have experienced yoga as a completely scientific subject. Whilst I was at university, I studied science studies called superconductivity. I studied cutting edge science and was interested in quantum theory and things like this. And so to be satisfied mentally by yoga, I needed not just the practical experience, but also the scientific understanding of what these things are that are being taught. And yoga's chitta vritti nirodha, when we say chitta, you can also understand this on one level as your intellect, and vritti, the modifications of the mind. So this is very important when we talk about calming our mind. So I've mentioned how important it is to know yourself as well in terms of getting that integration, because without that integration, that also gives you mental disturbance, because you are not in a position to accept your circumstances as they are. And this creates a tension within yourself. So we have Sankhya Nishta and Yoga Nishta. So yoga is the practice, and Sankhya on one level is the intellectual academic approach. But the Gita reminds us, Sankhya Yoga Pratakpala Parvartantina Pandita. You're not a pundit if you understand Sankhya and yoga as separate. So it's very important to have the practical knowledge as well as the book knowledge, and they together add to give you the whole knowledge. So now going on to practices. Now, something that is greatly misunderstood in current times is that there's this way of teaching, there's that way of teaching, this school of yoga, that school of yoga. But ultimately, if it's yoga, we're talking about reaching a level of consciousness, that samadhi, that stable wisdom, that stable intellect. And if it's a practice of yoga, that is ultimately what it will attain. And on the way, we have physical health and mental health, intellectual health coming along with that. And so when we talk about Kriya, Ashtanga, and Hatha, they're not independent. They're different ways of describing the same thing. And they are not precisely related to specific, unique practices of physical yoga. And we'll come on to that after these definitions. So Kriya Yoga, Patanjali told us, Tapa Swadhyayeshwara Pranadani Kriya Yoga. So Tapa Swadhyay. When we say self-study, it doesn't mean sit down and read a book. It means observe yourself. And this is also part of psychology, to observe yourself, to learn the way that your individual mind works, which is different to other people according to your combination of the three gunas. And then Ishvara Pranidhana, that is, of course, the last stages of that surrender. Again, bringing that integration of you with your greater Paramatma. So the individuality united with the universal is key to inner peace. Ashtanga Yoga, you know well. Yama, Niyam, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyan, Asmadayo, Ashtavangani. We'll go into those in detail, but just remember that without Yama and Niyama, there's no Asana. and Hatha. This is really, really important. If there's something that you can take away today, I really hope that this is about the real definitions of Hatha Yoga. Hatha, the word itself, is referring to some balance. And it is also referring to the balance between the two seeds, Ham and Tam, the inhaling and the exhaling, the Pran and the Apan, the sun and the moon, the Rajaguna and the Tamaguna, the heat and the cooling. Now, you may or may not be aware that these two nostrils are never, or sorry, rather rarely going equally. One of these breaths is always predominating, and that nostril that's predominating will determine whether your body's heating or whether it's cooling, whether it's in a state of Rajaguna or Tamaguna. And so we can control these through pranayama. We can heal ourselves through pranayama as well. For example, if there's a fever, we can bring down the heat by closing the right nostril and forcing the left nostril to open and work harder, which will bring down the fever, which has also been so important in the treatment of COVID. Also, if your left nostril is predominant, and you can test this by just breathing on your nose, on your hand at any time. If your left nostril is predominant, most likely you will not be experiencing hunger at that time, but it may be mealtime. Now, if that nostril is predominant, it means that your digestive fire also is not going to be active. And if your digestive fire is not active, i.e. the right nostril not predominant, and you eat food, that food doesn't get digested in your system properly, it doesn't nourish you properly, and is the cause of many diseases. So pranayama is key. The balancing of these two breaths is key to our mental stability, which I'll go into in more depth in a short while, and is key to our physical health as well. So the breath and our physical situation and our mental situation are deeply intertwined, and the balancing of these two breaths, the left and the right nostril, is called Hatha Yoga. And this is just part of Maha Yoga, which is a practice that I personally follow, which is a combination of Hatha Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Mananatrayatiti Mantra, that which protects you from the cogitations of the mind, Laya Yoga, and dissolving that asmita, and Raja Yoga, people tend to understand as psychology, but psychology is a small part of that. But these four combined are called Maha Yoga. So today I was invited to talk about calming the mind through yoga. I want to first look at what are the reasons that the mind is not calm. And this is described very beautifully in Patanjali Yoga Darshana, Vriteyaha, Panchateyaha, Klishta, Klishtaha. This is pure psychology. The vrittis are 5 kinds which cause pain, klishta or aklishta. Aklishta means na klishta, aklishta, not painful, an absence of pain. So these 5 vrittis, which are praman, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smritya, which are correct evaluation, proof, opposite knowledge, wrong knowledge, flickering, indecisiveness, sleep, and memory. These 5 vrittis have only 2 options of results, pain or an absence of pain. Peace and happiness are not an option. And this is also described in the Bhagavad Gita. And this is again a very psychological combination of slokas. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu pachayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodo pachayate krodat bhavati sammoha sammoha smriti vibramaha smriti brahmashada buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. This is talking about what happens when we concentrate on the external objects, first through our mind and then through our senses. That we have 7 stages of downfall that go through the upspringing of desire, from desire, whether fulfilled or unfulfilled, leads to anger. Anger leads to delusion. Delusion leading to the forgetting of who you are, forgetting your qualities. And just as we see when an angry person loses it, they become completely uncontrollable. And if we look at, for example, the teachings of karate or any kind of fighting, the first thing they teach their students and their children through psychological techniques is never ever to lose your anger. So Bhagavad Gita in so many thousands of years ago was already telling us this. That leading your anger would losing your temper will lead to delusion, will lead to the destruction of your intellect, which will lead to the complete destruction of you. So, and the Gita also tells us about who is a yogi, and a yogi is that who is yoga. And there's 4 shlokas where Arjuna asks Krishna who is a yogi, and I'm going to refer to the 4th one because this is about the pratyahara. How do we withdraw from this? What happens for pratyahara? And he says, Yada samharte chayam kumanganeva sarvasha indriyani indriyatebhyas tasya pragya pratishtata. This is a scientific description of the withdrawal from the senses. And it likens pratyahara, the practice that is just after pranayama in the 8 limbs of yoga, where he likens it to just as a tortoise withdraws their limbs at will and brings them out at will. In the same way, human beings, through the power of discrimination, through the practices of yoga, are able to control their senses at will. And the other definitions are talking about very satisfied by yourself, in yourself, being balanced in pain and happiness, in auspicious and inauspicious circumstances. So this all is talking about sthit pragya, stable wisdom, stable intellect, and it's completely through the practices of yoga, taking you to a psychological position where you have a stable and calm mind, stable and calm ego, stable and calm intellect. And that is that sthit pragya. So physically and subtly, how do we do these practices? And that starts with asana. Now, in these particular times, there are a lot of asanas that are very useful. And using time efficiently is always very important. And one of the most important asanas that I like to share is the benefits of Sarvangasanam. Sarvangasanam, of course, telling you all the limbs, which is in English, shoulder stands. Sarvangasana is an asana that benefits your entire body. And having the neck closed in so that the body fluids that are coming down are not going into the head, means that if there's any disease in your body, it's not going to affect you like it would if you were in headstand, for example. So headstand is not to be performed when you're not in full health, but Sarvangasana can be performed by anybody. And 4 minutes in Sarvangasana is equivalent to the benefits of a 4-kilometer walk. Can you imagine that? 4-kilometer walk is what doctors recommend for balancing your endocrine system. But you can attain that in just 4 minutes of Sarvangasana, a core practice of physical yoga. And another is Mayurasana. Mayurasana is called Mayurasana, peacock pose, because peacocks are able to digest poison. And so when we do Mayurasana, we are destroying or dissolving the physical poisons in our body, bringing us health, and also on the subtle level as well. It also helps with calming the mind. So these are 2 very important asanas for all times. And the extraordinary thing about yoga is that it's not just beneficial for times of COVID or post-COVID. It's as useful today as it was thousands of years ago, as it will be in the coming thousands of years. So these teachings are timeless and beneficial to all people. And now I want to go on to pranayama, which is the core of what I wanted to talk to you today, because this is the key to bringing to that stability, bringing that state of hatha into our everyday life. Now, Patanjali says, Tasmin sati shwas prashwasa yoho gati vichedha pranayama. Now, if you're a Hindi speaker or a Marathi speaker, Malayalam or Kannada, amongst many other languages, you'll from your mother tongue understand this without any translation. But it's basically, if you look in English, it's telling you about controlling the shwas and prashwas, the inhalation and the exhalation is called pranayama. And that happens with first having a stable asanam. And why do we need a stable posture? Because if our body is moving, then how are we going to control the airs, the 5 pranas in our body? So we need a stable physical base, and then we can control our breath through the with the inhalation and the exhalation, bringing them to balance, which is the hatha. So bringing this balance is what removes the mental obstacles, the mental disturbances, and controls the modifications of the mind, those vrittis that I mentioned, and also the chitta, which you can understand as the intellect, the buddhi. So what's so important about breath? Without breath, there is no life. Breath starts as soon as we enter this physical body and finishes as we leave the body. And so pranayama is key to bringing that breath under control, which brings ultimately our life under control. And it's probably, in my opinion, one of the most underutilized tools of yoga. And it can be, COVID has brought this to light with the need to clear the lining of the lungs so that the oxygen can be absorbed into the system. Because this is really where the real suffering in COVID has happened, is it that coating of the mucus on the lungs covers the alveoli, which enables you to absorb the oxygen. So if they are stuck with this heavy glue, the oxygen can't reach our system, our nervous system, our blood, etc. And so COVID has really highlighted the importance of pranayama, which is a good thing. And I hope that the practice of pranayama takes more, is more and more highlighted in society, because everybody is seeking peace and happiness. I don't think there's a single person on earth that says, I wouldn't like a calm mind, I wouldn't like to be happy or have peace. And actually, if you look at everybody's actions, they are centered on attaining peace and happiness. They are the cause of every single action we do. So the inhalation is bringing the oxygen, and the exhalation is discharging the carbon dioxide. Getting fresh oxygen makes us feel light and fresh, and discharging the carbon dioxide is removing the causes of diseases, and that carbon dioxide is what makes us feel really tired. So I've told you, if you could take one thing away, I would like it to be understanding what hatha is. The second thing that I'd like you to really take away from this talk today is that thought and breath are twins. If your thought process is under pressure, your breath is going to be under pressure. If your breath is under pressure, thought is going to come under pressure. You can't de-link these two. And in the same way, if we can control our breath, we can control our thought. And if through psychology, through our intellect, we can control our thought, our breath also comes under control. That is, however, much easier to do through the practice of pranayama, bringing the breath under control. And let's have a look at what happens when the mind gets disturbed. When we start to worry, when parishani aa jate hain man mein, it creates mental tension and heat in the head, which then imbalances our system, our nervous system. The imbalances in the nervous system then cause improper breathing. The lungs start to not function properly. We're not getting proper oxygen into the lungs start to contract. And that shrinking of the lungs reduces the capacity for us to take oxygen in the next breath as well. And it becomes a downward spiral where the mental tension starts reducing the capacity to breathe, the lungs shrink, the absorption of oxygen, the inhalation of oxygen becomes less and less. And as a consequence, this brings an increase in carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide directly increases the acid levels of our system. It creates exhaustion. It increases the white blood cells in the blood, which when out of balance lead to pain in the body, also make us feeling lazy, and the body starts feeling stiff, and we can get crystals in our muscles, and so many diseases, as well as increase in the thickening of the blood and blood pressure as well. So what's the secret? We need to reverse this system and this chart through pranayama. So what happens? When we do pranayama, first of all, pranayama starts purifying, cleaning, and thinning the blood. The improved circulation in the system starts the correct movement of the 5 pranas, the 5 vayu. And so the whole system starts to reactivate itself. In the brain, we start to receive blood in the right amounts, under the right pressure, and that starts to build better brain cells. Constantly, 24 hours a day, we are having new cells in our body. And these cells, for instance, if you look at the liver, a liver is being regenerated in every 6 months. So pranayama is reversing this process, which is destroying our system, and it brings our thought process under control. So prana and apana, you know about pran, saman, apan, udan, and vyan, the 5 vayus. And there are 4 key practices I want to highlight of pranayama, which are Anoma Viloma, Kapalbhati, Bhastrika, and Shitali, which I just mentioned briefly shortly. We have the inhaling, holding the breath in, exhaling, and holding breath out, the Puraka, Antara Kumbhaka, Rechaka, and Bahya Kumbhaka. And there's so many different techniques that we have, but in pranayama, one thing that's really important to focus on are the 3 bandhas. Mul bandha, the contracting upwards of the root lock. The exhalation, the complete exhalation of the lungs brings a vacuum in the lungs, which immediately brings in your stomach to a stomach lock called Udyan Bandha, and also Jalandhar Bandha, the chin lock. And so when you have the vacuum in the lungs, these automatically happen. And what happens here is then your vayu, your prana, the breath can't go below your neck, and that starts to heal the mind, starts to bring the stability, calming the mind inside. So this is what is really important to bringing the breath under control. The practices you know well, Anoma Viloma, alternate nostril breathing, Bhastrika, purifying by increasing the fire within your system, Nadi Shodhana, cleaning all the nadis in your system, and Kapalbhati, shining skull. This is about forcing the breath out through the top of your head. And this is incredibly powerful. This brings a mental stability very easily, and is neither heating nor cooling. So like Anoma Viloma, it's suitable for all year round. Shitali Pranayama, which we use in the hot season, or also to help balance fever. Again, cooling the mind, bringing stability. And Brahmari, which has been highly recommended in these COVID times, is something that anybody can do without any practice at all. And just do, it's also known as that humming bee. So where you hum with your ears and eyes closed. It's a very useful technique. And automatically, I mentioned that through pranayama, you get the control of the senses, the pratyahara, which affects your mind and your intellect. And then the last three practices are dharana, dhyan, samadhi, which happen together. So focusing on one point, constantly, repeatedly focusing on that point, and then ultimately becoming one with that point. This is ultimately that samadhi, that stable intellect, that state of consciousness where there's stable wisdom. And this is what brings that calmness in your mind, because your breath is under control, your thought is under control. And so really, when we talk about yoga, ultimately, it comes down to meditation. And meditation is something that we are practicing 24 hours a day. The only difference is that we are concentrating, focusing on changing focal points, sometimes focusing on giving a talk, sometimes focusing on calling someone, sometimes focusing on reading a book. But when we make a focal point through mantra, for example, it's like riding a bicycle. Initially, it takes our full concentration to be able to ride that bicycle. But after some time, we become well practiced. And even now, you'll be able to ride your motorbike whilst you're on the mobile phone or talking to someone without even looking forward. In the same way, if we have this constant focal point, no matter what it is, we then are able to act through our intellect, our ego, and our mind and our senses with our physical work and our mental work, our intellectual work, by maintaining one focal point. So our energy is less scattered. And I mentioned that Mananat Trayatiti mantra. Mantra is that which protects you from the cogitations of the mind. And the most important one of these is something that is called pranava, omkara. This is beyond any religion or group of people or country. This is linguistically, we can prove why this is an uplifting sound, which is given to us in Samaveda as an Udagita Shabda. If you place your hand on your throat and you go, you'll see that your throat is struck. The prana touches your throat. Ooh, see my lips, ooh, it's striking my lips, and it's striking the top of my nasal passages. So this is how in the physical body, physically, we can uplift our energy, bringing calmness in our mind through the chanting of this omkara, which also affects our subtle body, which is the realm of the mental. Some people also call it the mental body, and also the causal body, which is also known as the intellectual body. So it's important to, if you want to maintain a calm mind, it's important to do regular practice. A calm mind needs a healthy body as well. And just in the way as we regularly eat food when we run out of energy, it's also important to do regular practice of your yoga practice so that it is constantly replenishing you, constantly cleaning you. In the same way that we have a shower every morning and we wear clean clothes, it's important to clean our mind and our intellect every day as well through the practice of yoga. And we can bring that into our daily life, and bringing that acceptance into life, accepting where we are and doing our best to solve every solution without getting into a state of panic is very important to keeping our calm mind. So how do we do this? Take some time, sit in a quiet place, have a stable posture, a stable asana. Control your breath through pranayama, which will purify your system inside, and concentrate on a mantra inside, which will take you inside beyond the realm of the mind and the senses, and keep that focus on one point. And in the words of my teacher, Brahmrishi Vishwatma Bhavaraji, this is my concluding slide. He said, happiness is the aim of life, and nobody can achieve happiness without peace. Peace is the result of a tranquil mind, a calm mind. And no one can achieve a calm mind without stable wisdom. That's samadhi, that's sthit prajna. And that stable wisdom comes as a consequence of meditation. With that, I will pause my talk here. I thank the organizers very much. I'll say Hari Om Tat Sat and Pranam.
Thank you, Lucy ma'am, for the enlightening speech. Now the session is open to the question and answers. I request all the participants to unmute their mics one by one if you have any questions.
Hello.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Ma'am, namaste. Lucy ma'am, namaste.
Pranam.
It's my honor to interact with you. I'm deeply impressed by the depth of your knowledge. Actually, we Indians are honored by the contributions made by you people. You are more Indian than us. Am I audible?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to ask one question that you were a national hockey player, and I have studied so many training plans of different players. So I couldn't find exact information regarding when yogasana or yoga should be included in the training plan. Means it should be in during warm up or cool down, or how many days a player should practice yoga for keeping himself or herself fit. So
Well,
what is the proper time?
I haven't specifically introduced that to hockey training because at that time I didn't know. I wasn't actually a national player. I played up to the level. I didn't represent the country, but I was in the last rounds for the country. So I think that the cricket team, the national cricket team of India has understood this very well, and it's very well worth looking at their training program. I personally would, if I was a hockey player now, I would devote at least 1.5 hours per day with 40 minutes of asanas, focusing on things like Mayurasana, Savang Asana, some of these very strong poses, Surya Namaskar, and then devoting 20 minutes to pranayama and 20 minutes to meditation. That would be my minimum practice if I was a player today. For improving not just my physical strength, but also my focus power. Because when we look at national, international sports players, especially ball sports, weightlifting and these things are strength. But when we look at ball sports, the key is focus, meditation.
Yeah.
The ball in tennis and sometimes in hockey moves faster than the eye is able to see. This means the power of perception is required, and that will only come through meditation. And so these people are great meditators.
Yeah. Nice information. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes, sir, go ahead, Vishal sir. Please unmute your mic, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Pranam.
Leo, very wonderful presentation for all this year. I'm asking one question. You explain about the spirituality. What about the concept of Shata Chakra and spirituality? As per your thinking. And what about the research of the Shata Chakra? Is it you know? As per
Sorry,
your-
are you talking about as are you talking about the chakra in terms of the chakra system in the body?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't call that Shata Chakra. The Vedas refer, most commonly you find a Sapta Chakra, but the Vedas actually says Ashta Chakra Naudwara Devanam Purayodhya. Now, the Vedas is giving us two things in here. It's giving a subtle reference. Ayodhya. My body is Ayodhya, the place of no battles. So this is referring to a state of consciousness, a mental and intellectual state. And then it's saying 8 chakras, which is the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipur, Anahat, Vishuddha, Lalana. Lalana is something that's not often talked about. Lalana is at the roof of the palate. Agya and Brahma. So your Shat chakra will fit in there. It definitely won't have Lalana, and there's one other missing. I'm not quite sure what that might be. But the Vedas here is combining this journey through the chakras with a combination of closing 9 gates. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, mouth, and 2 lower gates. Now, this is a direct physical relation with a state of super consciousness, realizing all the divine beings within you in this city called Ayodhya. So in just one mantra of Atharvaveda, I hope that that answers your question, because this is the root of life.
Very nice explanation. Thank you.
My pleasure. And can I
Thank
just
you.
say one thing more to Dr. Shirish Tupareji? And I hope I pronounce your name
Yes,
correctly.
yes.
You said one thing.
Yes, absolutely.
You said one thing about being Indian and not Indian. I want to take you back to your roots. Bayam ratiti bharatam. Prakashena yuktaha iti bharatam. What is Bharat? Bharat is that which is joined by light. What is light? Knowledge. Knowledge of the Paramatma. This is Bhartiya. This is Bhartiya Sanskriti. And it is a knowledge that is not based on your geographical location. Bharat has
Yeah, yeah.
no geographical boundary. This is divine
Okay,
knowledge
yeah.
for everybody.
Yes. Yeah. It's my pleasure to interact with you.
It's my pleasure to be invited by you today, and I hope that I hope that I've stuck to what was hoped for by Dr. Kalatkarji.
Yes.
Anyone
Thank you.
else? Okay, thank you, ma'am. As we come to the closure of the first session, I invite Nisha Sharma, madam, to propose the formal vote of thanks. Sharma, ma'am.
Thank you, Satima. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
It's so amazing to see our expert speaker, H. Lucy guest, Divya Prabhaji, her quest for meaning in life, her residence in India since last 18 years, her belief in yoga philosophy. Everything is so inspiring. I particularly liked where she mentioned the imagery of human life between 2 banks of river called life and death. The way in which she explained the subject was extraordinary. On behalf of Santaji Mahavidyalaya, I remark a proficient sense of gratefulness to her for spending her busiest time gracing the occasion. Your thoughts have enlightened us, madam, and you have shown us a new path. Thank you so very much. Also extend my thanks to Principal Dr. Jaideep Ghosh from Kolkata, Dr. Lalchand Paradhi, Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Jaikumar Kshirsagar, Dr. Lalita Punia, Principal Shri Mohan Wankhede sir from Gondia, Purva Khedkar madam, Parimal Kumar Meheto from Jharkhand, N.M. Mishra from Chitrakoot, Dr. S.N. Tripathi, Shri Soheb Khan sir, Tulika Chakraborty, Farial Sheikh, Kaustubh Ray from West Bengal, Shirish Topre, and Dr. Vishal Khadaskar sir from Amravati. I thank you all for participating in today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Now I request Dr. Sanjay Khadaskar sir to introduce our next guest, Dr. Stes from Poland, who will deliver us the speech in the second session. Dr. Sanjay Khadaskar sir.
Swati ma'am, can I request one thing? I
Yes,
guess your
ma'am.
principal ma'am's audio is on and I cannot mute it from here. So can you
Okay,
please tell her? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Khadaskar sir, can you unmute ma'am's mic? Khadaskar sir.
Yeah. Take.
Yes, sir, that's done.
Chalo, thank you, Swati madam. Christopher Stake, PhD, Master of Physical Education, Diploma in Yoga Education. Formal education, 2012 to 2014, University of Physical Education, Warsaw, Poland. Degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Physical Education and Sports Sciences. His thesis, Effect of Yoga Practice of Dynamic Surya Namaskar on Physiological, Physical Fitness and Anthropometric Characteristics of Indian Student. 1980 to 1981, Education International of New York, USA. Evaluation of Foreign Education and Training. 1978 to 79, University of Cincinnati, Ohio, USA. Bachelor of Science in Education, undergraduate studies at the College of Education and Home Economics. Major, Health and Physical Education. 1973 to 1975, University of Physical Education, Katowice, Poland. As a student, graduate studies at the College of Physiotherapy, Movement Rehabilitation Intense 4-year-long master degree program. Specialized training and Polish government to main physiotherapy centers in Kostycin near Warsaw and Ripety Salaski near Katowice. Granted 3-year leave of absence for studies in USA. 1972-73, University of Physical Education, Warsaw, Poland, as a student, undergraduate studies at the College of Physical Education. 2012 present, Jan Douglas University, Kristosovia, Poland. Lecturer at the Faculty of Health Sciences, Institute of Health Sciences and Physiotherapy. Subject taught human nutrition, prevention of metabolic disorder, relaxation methods, therapeutic gymnastic, physical yoga and Surya Namaskar, group of individual recreation, movement education and teaching methodology. Design a unique exchange program and training for Polish physiotherapy students in alternative therapies in India and for Indian students at Polish physiotherapy centers. 2012 present, University of Physical Education, Wrocław, Poland, lecturer at the postgraduate courses related to yoga and relaxation, subjects taught Surya Namaskar and its tradition, classical Hatha Yoga, Shat Karma, relaxation. Publication, author or co-author of over 60 publications in specialized high-ranked international magazine. Over 20 papers in Scopus and Web of Science journals, presenter at over 20 international conferences, published 2 specialized academic monographs on dynamic Surya Namaskar. One of them translated into French, Italian, Polish, and English language, and on the system of Shatkarmas in Polish title, Therapeutic and Hygienic Techniques in Yoga. Professional affiliations, International Association of Yoga Therapists, professional member since 2006, Japan Yoga Therapy Society, professional member since 2006. Thank you. And I will request Dr. Christopher Steele. Thank you.
Can I speak now? Hari Om, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Wonderful. I want to let you know, since you are mostly, I believe, or all of you are, with few exceptions, are from Nagpur. I've been through Nagpur a number of times. And the reason I have come through Nagpur airport was on my way to Amravati, where Dr. Arun Kodaskar facilitated my connection and relationship, ongoing relationship with HVPM. I'm sure you know, anyone who lives in Maharashtra must know that very fine physical education institution. About 3-4 years ago, I spent there 3 months scientific exchange program. And also, I visited Anandwan. You must have heard of that community of lepers, Anandwan, which is close by to Nagpur. And another reason is that my favorite yoga professor from Kaivalyadam near Pune, you know, Lonavla near Pune, Kaivalyadam, Smem Samiti, Dr. Bhole, he was from Nagpur. He obtained his MBBS Nagpur many years ago. Actually, about a month and a half ago, he passed away. He was the joint director of yoga research at Kaivalyadam, one of the finest yoga research institutions with which I am very connected. So I decided to speak today about topics that most people sort of don't like to speak when talking about yoga. These are some very fundamental things, and let me see if I can succeed in getting share of the screen, and if I can get my my slides on. Okay, let me see, because can you see the slide now? Is that on?
Yes, sir. It's coming.
It's coming. Okay.
It has come. Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah. You can just do F5, so it will go on to the slideshow.
Yes, I'm trying to, but let me see. Where can I do that? Slovenia. Normally, I use a different communicator, oh,
yes, sir.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Perfect. Yeah.
So now we can. You see, I have quite a few slides, so through some of them, I will be paging quite fast, just to give you an idea, because the whole presentation could go well over 40 minutes, but there are very important points I wanted to for you to look at and consider it in your future work. So let's see if we can move on. Why optimal peak performance? Why that title? Why do I connect it with yoga? Well, to me, one of the most extreme peak performances in human life is yoga. Please do imagine that humans with regular consciousness, everyday consciousness, are trying to reach to the superhuman godlike consciousness. This is way more than climbing Mount Everest in Himalayas. This is enormous skill and enormous energy that one needs to display in order to succeed. And as we know, not too many people succeed at the goal of yoga, which over the years, unfortunately, has changed. As we know, in the past, about 70 years ago or 60 years ago, synonymous word for yoga was samadhi. And now, unfortunately, through certain forms of yoga, synonymous word for yoga is asanas, not even pranayamas, it's asanas. People connected with some kind of weird gymnastics, great flexibility, a little bit less strength, and so forth. So I think it has been diluted, not only in the West, but also in India, I believe. So that's the reason I decided to speak about this optimal peak performance. And there are the methods. Please consider, I have been working and really wrote thesis and quite fine research, well quoted in my master degree program at Banaras Hindu University, where I stayed for 2 years, very fine physical education department. And then also at my PhD level, research was done at University of Rajasthan during my time at University of Rajasthan, but ultimately my PhD was completed at the Polish finest University of Physical Education, which overall over the years since 1929 has won many Olympic medals, gold Olympics, silver, and all kinds of world championships, European championships. So in one sentence, it has a very fine accomplishments in physical education. Dynamic Surya Namaskar, it has been my main interest in yoga. Not to say that I have not followed very great saints of India, and actually I'm quite strongly connected with Nath, Siddha and Nath tradition from Maharashtra, from the state of Maharashtra. Probably because I started my India experience with Lonavla, with Kaivalya Dham in Lonavla. But the dynamic Surya Namaskar has become sort of focus of my practice. And I say dynamic, you will see in a moment why, because the intensity is enormous. It is at the world-class level. If you want to perform, I will go very briefly into that because we have a broad topic to cover. So the other aspect of that, after some years of practice, I realized that I cannot achieve my very best if I don't look at the diet problem. And lo and behold, I found in the yogic scriptures, Hatha Pradipika, Garanda Samhita, Hatha Tattva Kaumudi, and so many other, that the diet is really most important issue. Generally, we know that diet is important. If you don't eat well, you will not be healthy, but that is way not enough. That's the reason I call it ultimate diet. I will try to give you some insights why I think like that. And then the other wing of it, because the bird has two wings, one is ultimate diet here on the Ashtanga Kriyas, is the system that I have coined out myself, basically based on number of things, and I will intimate you a little bit later. So if you want to succeed in that optimal peak performance, I put the percentages. What is the importance of that? You know, dynamic Surya Namaskar, it's not that you do, I don't know, 6, 12, or even 54 or 108. You really do that with great intensity for hundreds of repetitions. But let's move on. So these three aspects we'll be considering and talking a little bit more closely. But please do understand that you can put under name of dynamic Surya Namaskar any of the professional high performance sports. I found that dynamic Surya Namaskar is one of the absolutely highest performance sports, and perhaps you'll understand why. Here, Lord Surya Deva, the Lord of Surya Namaskar. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Oh, well, let's move on. So what is it? It's a crest jewel of all exercises. It's a form, of course, of the sun worship. We know that the date of Surya Namaskar is way beyond yoga, at least 5,000 years back. Vedas write about it and so forth. We don't have time to look at all these aspects, otherwise it would be a 2 or 3 day workshop. I can only focus on a few points. So the breath is there, it's focused mind, it brings a lot of benefits, most important are 21. It is a complete sadhana. As you know, there are yogis, there are sects of yogis in India who focus on nothing else but Surya Namaskara practice in a very special way, and they can go all the way to reach goal of yoga. There are many different styles in India. I found 50 as I have been traveling through India, just about all the states of India over my last 45 years of going to India. But I found that probably from scientific point of view, the Rishikesh series developed by Swami Satyananda of Bihar School of Yoga is the one. Of course, we know that Surya Namaskar should have 12 postures, but we also know that there are styles which project 11 postures, 15 postures, 21, 29 postures, all kinds of things. And also different naming. The vinyasa is called Chandra Guru Namaskar, Hanuman Namaskar, and on we can go like that. But I have focused on Rishikesh series, and you will see perhaps why I have chosen that style. This is the style that I have chosen. The position number 5 here is the one which probably you will see not in too many styles. Usually other styles like Raja of Aund near Pune, the one who brought to the light and more interest of the modern world. Raja of Aund, he had a Dandasana or a stick pose, and instead of that, I of course would have more time. I would argue why I think it's much better to have the dog facing down position, Iyengar convention, or Parvatanasana and some other conventions. But this is the sequence of 12 that I use. Now, I have formulated 4 levels of practice, and only one, the highest level, is called Dynamic Surya Namaskar. Please do notice down there that 40 rounds, 12 positions each round, is done in 5 minutes. What it means that one round is about 7.5 seconds, which gives you enormous intensity. Such enormous intensity that after half an hour practice, continuous practice, you would I lose 1 kg body mass, 1 kg. And if I do 1008 Surya Namaskar, that would be about 4.5 kg body mass. So as anyone who is in sports can understand quickly that the intensity is one of the highest at the level of the best marathon runners or super marathon runners, except that those guys on the way, they get some liquids, some drinks, fortifying their calories and giving them extra food on the way. Here, you don't have a chance to do it because of the particularity of the exercise. So in brief, if you want to know more, you can look up my book. There are many, many details, very fine, very important details. I wanted to turn your attention to one of the meanings of hatha, which is forceful or rigorous. All published scriptures, most that we know, suggest mild intensity of the practice. But newly published, well, now it's about 15 years, but quite newly, as you consider the lore of yoga or hatha yoga, hatha bhasya padati, but by one of the 17 siddhas, which are mentioned in Hatha Pradipika. Those guys, they publish their own scriptures, and here is where this Mahasiddha, where he recommends practice, rigorous practice in thousands of repetitions. So by doing it, I have discovered that indeed it is a correct interpretation due to the certain kind of experiences, spiritual, mystical, and other experiences that I was able to have over the years of practice. So I like to, when I hear new techniques, I like to practice it and see it if I can get the results which are reported in the scriptures. No, I don't want to keep mentioning them, but you know what I'm talking about. Hatha Pradipika, Garanda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Hatha Tattva Kaumudi, and so many of them. So I would challenge many people to really try that very rigorous and forceful practice. Also, I got over the years recommendation from some really great masters that this forceful practice is indeed a correct interpretation. Some of you who live in the Maharashtra states nowadays can travel to Shirdi and can find Janglidas Maharaj. I don't know if that is a known name to you or not, but I work with him very closely, and I was surprised because really in that ashram they heavily practice just about Atma Chintan, the meditation, no other formal hatha yogic practices. Yet the Guru himself, he is involved in a very rigorous individual practice. Here is one of my research. Those people who understand physiological research, I quickly describe what's going on. So the green on the left is indicates the threshold where for that group of individuals. There were 15 individuals. Here the practice was going on just for 20 minutes. 15 individuals practice for 20 minutes. An average number of Surya Namaskar performed was between 140 to 160. So you can see it was very vigorous speed. And then the Surya Namaskar is yellow, and then the diagram with the red color is the maximal load capacity for these individuals. You can see that between the threshold, there is a statistical difference between threshold and Surya Namaskar and between threshold and the maximal load. But there is no statistical difference between Surya Namaskar and maximal load. What that means, in fact, that we doing that for 20 minutes, we were staying close to maximal load. It wasn't exactly 100%, but maybe 95, 96%, which is unusual. Those who practice and work in physiological lab, they know that when the individual comes and puts forth 100% for 3 minutes, that's a requirement, 3 minutes, after that, they basically fall off the chair. It is so strenuous. And yet here, we were doing for 20 minutes. So what is the magic about this particular practice? No, well, there is a magic. There is unusual practice where just about all 600 muscles, including, you know, the inner intestines muscles, are being exercised. And on and on. And we need to move on. Here are some publications. The one on the left is currently available at Motilal Banarsidass, Surya Namaskar Sun Salutation, but the one, Dynamic Surya Namaskar, was published earlier in 2000, I believe, 13 at probably the finest Indian yoga research institution, Vyasa Yoga University in Bangalore. I wonder if you have heard of that institution. They have possibly one of the best equipped labs of any kind, labs, physiological, psychological, and on, and work with very fine institution in Bangalore if they don't have some equipment. So I recommend you to get closer to look at that institution. Here are the books, the same book, Surya Namaskar. On the left is Italian version, in the middle is French version, and in Polish version on the right. So, so this was about Surya Namaskar. Now, the basic elements of yoga practice from scientific point of view, it must contain physical postures more than exercises, breathing exercises, pranayamas, which are totally different than, for example, deep breath. Breath has not much to, yogic breath has not much to do with the gas exchange, oxygen or carbon dioxide exchange. As Dr. Bolle approach was very different. It is a way of experiencing very different sensations from our body. This is what yogis most likely wanted to convey in their scriptures. So gas exchange, it's a Western approach. The experience of breath, these are the experiences that the yogis are after. Then effect result of deep relaxation, Shavasana, Yoga Nidra, and others is very important. And meditation, or in other words, focusing of the mind is very important. And one more I would like to add, which is certainly overlooked by just about everybody. Though in general, everybody knows, yes, you need to have a good diet. But what it means, a good diet, there is so many different ideas. So diet, Mitahara, is extremely important. Actually, without it, you will not succeed, and you will see in a moment. So what temporal changes in yoga practice? After one practice or 2-3 sessions, you'll have arousal reduction, physical, mental well-being. Then after a few weeks, you will increase your mind-body awareness, resilience will increase, and self-regulation process will start. And after several months, maybe half a year, maybe in other cases, after several years, psychological and philosophical transformation happens. That's very important to understand how these yoga practice are projected on us. Now here it's in one big diagram that you can understand all this intricate relationships between different aspects of human being. Unfortunately, I don't feel that we have time right now to do it, but different arrows will show you whether it increases, decreases, and on and on. If you need more, that book is only in Polish, that I recently wrote an academic monograph titled Techniques of Therapeutical Processes of Yoga, which talk about shat karmas, which are again very much overlooked, especially in the Western world. People call something hatha yoga, and it means not much except for them asanas and maybe sometimes pranayamas. They don't have a deeper understanding that there are hatangas which need to be followed. And now a little bit change of pace. Please look at this arithmetic of vitality. This is the second most important slide in my presentation. So the human body is a biological engine which transforms energy supplied by nutrients. So vitality, or the name that I gave it to that energy that we have for our disposal, depends on energy supplied by nutrients minus obstructions. If you take, for example, electric motor, you supply it with electric power, it will turn, will generate mechanical energy, but you know that some energy will be wasted on the heat. Actually, some electric motors work so hard that you can cook tea, just putting your cup on the engine. So these obstructions are always there, and they usually get dissipated by heat generation. So the same obstruction is in human body. So let's take a short look at what are these obstructions. The foreign matter, encumbrances, toxemias, mucus, drugs used in the past, and on and on. Every disease can be interpreted as constipation or these obstructions, regardless of the name given by science. If you would look at a medical book published 100 years ago, and now you would see 100 years ago about 3,000 definitions of various symptomatic diseases, and now about 24,000. But the source is in fact one, is the digestive system and the wrong which we are doing to it. So any disease is body's attempt to eliminate these obstructions, regardless what it is, regardless. So now we say so much pollution in our environment that there's only a question, not whether you are polluted from within, but how much of that you got. The more you're getting it, the more sick you may become, or just coming about the sickness. So now let's take a look at Hatha Yogic scriptures. What are they saying about it? So let's look Hatha Pradipika, chapter 3.8. Now you have to understand that there are many Hatha Pradipikas. I like to use the one published by Kaivalyadama, which is 389 sutras and 5 chapters. But I know that most they have 4 chapters, but I have got my hands on the one which has 10 chapters and 1552 sutras, and that has been published by the Indian repository of Hatha Yogic lore, which is in Lonavla. It is not Kaivalyadama. It is called the Yoga Institute of Lonavla. If you are interested, you can find very fine books. So let's take a look. The 3rd chapter. Already Svatmarama gave a couple of lectures about the fundamental arrangements that Hatha Yogi should make, how the hut should be built, what kind of food should be eaten, on and on. And then the 2nd chapter is about asanas, about 18 of them he discusses. Classical asanas, and then he comes to a lecture on pranayamas, but then he, after 7 sutra, he stops, and the 7 first sutras he talks about Nadi Shuddhi, which I call like a pre-pranayama, and then he stops and he says this: the Hyat karma should be practiced to get rid of the disorders of fat and phlegm. One who enjoys a balanced condition of the 3 humors needs not to practice them. Well, it's a quite important guidance. At that time, that was about 14th, 15th century. The date of writing Hatha Pradipika is not known, exact date, but it is the period end of 14th century, beginning of 15th century. And this is what they are saying. Look what happens when the next scripture, Garanda Samhita, is written about 17th century. What happens here? Sage Garanda gives 7 aids in conditioning the body. It's the body. Shodhana, purification, is number 1, and then the following other. And then he noticed that he gives that lecture as the first one. So the students who want to practice psychosomatic yoga, where Hatha Yoga, of course, belongs to psychosomatic yoga, they have to start with shodhana, with purifications, not like in Hatha Pradipika that only for few, those who have excess of fat or other phlegm and kapha and so forth. And what happens in 18th century? Great scripture Hatha Tattva Kaumudi, which is possibly the first encyclopedia, yogic encyclopedia. Practice of Ashtanga Yoga, he refers today, of course, to Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga, is indeed an exercise in futility without the purification of the impurities. It does not bring about success, even though practiced for a long time, to one who is internally and externally replete. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Because Patanjali promises that if you practice something for a long time with vairagya, detachment, then you will gain success in yoga. And here, I will get the name of the author of this. It is Sundaradeva. It is Sundaradeva who said that he was a Pandit living in Benares, not only a Pandit, also a very accomplished yogi. So he had two looks, approaches to yogic science, the way it should be. It means the practice is much more important than the theoretical understanding. Actually, I wanted to make a comment when my colleague was talking earlier, because I experienced it directly many years ago in Mumbai, that actually experience seems to be much more important than the intellectual understanding. You had a great sage living in first part of 20th century in Mumbai, Nisargadatta Maharaj, great Advaita thinker. I don't know if any of you who are from Maharashtra have heard of him. He passed away in 1982. I had the luck to get initiated by him and to practice according to his recommendations. His famous book, I Am That, which was edited and published by a person of Polish origin who lived in India, Maurice Friedman, that also I was able to meet personally. And that man, as a lay person, he was very poorly educated, only 7 classes of primary school. You know, attitude of class system and all of that in India, those days wasn't easy. No Pandit actually would speak to him. He was a seller of bidis, sitting at some corner, you know, of Mumbai, selling his bidis and other little small things. And he wasn't even interested in spirituality until one friend said to him, look, some Nath is coming, we'll give you a program, come along with me and please get interested in spiritual life. Then he got it and started practicing, and very shortly, in 3 years of practice, attained the highest levels of human consciousness. And later, to him, remember, he had no education. He barely spoke Marathi, but no Hindi, and of course no Sanskrit. And imagine that later on, his understanding was so deep that great Pandits of very great fame would come to him humbly and ask him for explanation what this or that scripture that he never heard of wanted to say in this or that shloka in some, very important scripture. Anyway, let's move on. So here it's just several other extractions from that very great book, which is about Hatha Tattva Kaumudi, which is about 1200 pages. Just as all limbs of the body is the prime importance, similarly among all the yoga practice, Nadi Shuddhi assumes significance in the beginning, unless and until this Hatanga is practiced intensely, yoga practice of a practitioner is futile, and on we could go like that. We need to move on. My colleagues talked about Ashtanga Yoga, which is obviously most well-known system, but we cannot forget that there are Saptanga Yoga by Garanda Sanhita, Sage Garanda, Sadanga Yoga by Goraknath, and also Hatha Pradipika by Svatmarama, which is created Chaturanga Yoga. So we have many other yogas. There are also yoga which has 15 angas and on and on. So for classical yoga, 8 limbs are fine, but we should not forget especially about the physical yoga, which has many different systems. So let's now quickly look at ultimate diet. Let's look for a moment at modern diet. We have processed food, all kinds of processing which destroys our food. Overeating is another problem. Eating too oily, too salty, too spicy, too starchy, and too sweet. And I'm sorry, I know I'm talking to people from Maharashtra, but let me explain to you one of my experiences I had in Kashmir. I was going to see Amarnath, and I talked to local people over there, And it just happened that he had visitors from Maharashtra. And he said, look, these people spice it so much and make their food so salty. And he prepared the food ingredients, said, look, this will be for us and for you and for me, because we don't like so much spices. But look, this will be the same food, but look how much more spicing this food for Maharashtrian people will be. And it was about 10 times more, just to give you an indication that perhaps you want to look at the food quality and spicing and all of that as you want to be more healthy in the state of Maharashtra. Lack of sufficient mastications, and very important, food is not properly combined most of the time. We could go more into detail that, but we have unfortunately no time. If you don't have proper diet, look what happens into your intestines. And the one especially on the lower right corner, I call it black cobra effect, because this species that we got from our patients, this species of health, quote unquote, is of a length of about 130 centimeters, just as long as your colon is, as your large colon is. And it is very hard, just like a rock. And it's so stinky and so smelly that you would think literally that poo, which is outside, fresh poo, it's this perfume by comparison in smell. Imagine some food debris remaining in your gut for about 30, 40, 50 years at the temperature of 37 degrees, what will happen to it? You can test it with a food in your kitchen just for 7 days in the temperature that you have in India, 37 degrees as the human body is, and see how stinky, how bad it will be. But this is what we have in our gut, basically. And what happens when this fails, then the next level is the liver debris samples. Here you see this liver stones. The darker, the worse, they're hard like rocks and all of that. This is actual real medical science that we are talking here. And here, even when liver finally gets polluted, and it gets quite quickly, then eventually you get the kidney stones, and so many people have this problem. And after that, there is no more defense system in our body, and all of that gets spread out throughout your body with your bloodstream. So 7 levels of pollution in spite of healthy looks. One starts feeling being tired, but slowly increases until 7-level formation of tumors. Very important connection between food and the medicine by Hippocrates, well known. Look at the US federal government, why it is like that, because of the lobbyists. Look at the pyramid on the left, where the money and subsidies go. And this is another US agency, what recommendations for people should eat. Another interesting statistics about 10-year-old, average European eats yearly about 54 kilograms of harmful substances, 54 kilograms, 8,000 additives, excessive consumptions of medicine, on and on like this. How can you have health? Agricultural toxins is a big problem, especially big in India. You have to take a look at that. The lowest point. No time, but just that is big impact. The 2 most important harmful substances, aspartame, which is used in Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and so forth, all these Sprite drinks and all of that. Sodium glutaminate to increase the experience of taste, of course. Chinese use it regularly. So this is just these 2 out of 8,000. There's so many more very bad ones, but these are most popular. Terrible. Now I wanted to take your look at the depletion of nutrients in our foods. This is look at the top 85 compared to 96. Look, most popular foods. How much most important nutrients? Calcium, for example, in broccoli, 68% less. Apple should have vitamin C, 80% less, and on and on. These are prepared by two very famous European laboratories, one in Karlsruhe in Germany, another one in Sweden. So this is another look why we have a problem. Now, Indian capsule, I was able to find Times of India, 2006. Look, the drops in nutritional value. New York Times, 2013. Look, most popular food. How much? What has happened? The phytochemicals, which are most important, actually more important than vitamins, minerals, and everything else. We focus on macronutrients and not on micronutrients, but this is where is the big problem. Look at this. There are hundreds of times in apples, crab apples, which is the original father of all apples in the world, compared to Golden Delicious right now, which are sold in America. With the potatoes, look, potatoes come from Peru. Look, white potatoes, which we have only 103.03 phytochemicals, and the original Peruvian at 5,000 to 6,000 meters, where the weather is so harsh, had 171. So you can see the depletion of food. Then the problem of GMO. We know that, but we know how terrible it is. Look what happens to rats visually. You may remember these images. How badly it is after 4 months of using the corn, GMO corn, and aspartame, which also is highly used in India. What happens? And if you wonder why your immunity system gives up on you, here you have the answer. If you don't start watching it very closely and see what the government does to you, well, actually the problem with the government is all over, that they represent the lobbyists, not really the interests of the people, because who pays the money? The politicians need election money. So you know this triangle of power. Organic farming is, of course, the response. Manasobu Fukuoka, famous Buddhist monk from Japan, but also I found in Bhaskar Save in Gujarat. I visited him personally, and he has done tremendous work. And the Dream of Natural Farming, it's a book to get it. Recommended to all Indian. As long as one feeds on food from unhealthy soil, the spirit will lack the stamina to free itself from the prison of the body. Spiritual philosopher Rudolf Steiner, he is a big name in Europe, so you can take a closer look. Now, this is what we should eat if we want to stay healthy. Fresh fruit, raw vegetables every day. Minimum 51% of your food, daily food intake should be raw. Should be raw. Many reasons why, but it should be. Here is the elements food components that we eat. And in yellow, please note that these are the ones which are most important, but completely we don't focus on that. If you want perfect health, nutritional density should be way higher than caloric density. Very important health equation developed by Joel Foreman. In my book, if you would care to get it, you will see all the very important 250 pieces of literature on which I make all these claims. The bioflavonoids, why they are so important and what we do. Imagine, for example, we peel our potato, but the most important flavonoids are in the skin and 1.5 millimeters under. And we cannot preserve it by freezing it or by cooking. As you see, flavonoids bioactivity is only in temperatures between 0 degree centigrade and 40 centigrade. We have huge problem with grains. No time to go now. I want to take a quick look at the dead water, which you have in a tap, and the live water, which is extremely important to have. It's a new science, new quote unquote, because Russians have done tremendous work on the live water, what it means. What it means that either you irrigate your tissues, which you should, or you hydrate them. Most people hydrate them only. And for example, very heavy, huge body Americans, 70% are overweight in America. You know that. That's the reason that our bodies retain water. They hydrate only, but because of the wrong quality of water and damaged livers, they are unable to irrigate their tissue. So they are having so much water in the body, but their cells are dying of thirst. The evacuation, much knowledge is here. Masaru Emoto, he just passed away about a couple of years ago. The beautiful hexagonal shape. That's the water we should drink. That's the reason yogis stayed in Himalayas and mountains where water was unpolluted, small particles of water, easily absorbable, and water which was able to hydrate ourselves and not just irrigate. Here is the shape of water that we have, for example, in Hiroshima in Japan. On the left, look up, so they had the nuclear explosion after Second World War, so they have more shapes reminding the hexagon. And here up on the right side, we have from London and from Paris down below. You don't see any hexagonal shapes, which is terrible for the population over there. And these are most beautiful shapes possible to get it from crystal clear mountain water. So we have basically people experience chronic dehydration. We have to drink live water. If there will be some questions what it is, how to get it, we can go more into it. Symptoms of dehydration, you can see so many problems. No time to go. Now this is the modern medical system in short, how it works and why in fact it doesn't work and all the symptoms. Then the Ashtanga Kriyas is the last part. Let's go quickly. It's a unique system, means significantly decrease or completely eliminate obstructions. You remember the bird has two wings. One is the ultimate diet, another one is the ways and techniques of removal. Look, the work is based on Russian scientist work, Gennady Malakhov, Mikhail Tombak probably has a few books in English that have been translated. I have not heard of Malakhov being translated into English. Now, other great names, Arnold Ehret, McCarrison, McGerson, Norman Walker, Paul Brock, Masaru Emoto, many others who have done very fine way out of the mainstream science. You have to move out of the mainstream science to understand what is really going on. Then it's, of course, the yoga, Shat Karmas, and Ayurveda Panchakarma. And so I have identified Ashtanga Kriyas means 5 main processes. There are energy purification, loosening up of the body, the colon purification, liver purification, kidney purification. You have seen those stones. Now you can understand why. And the fine tuning, removal of parasites and other pathogenic organisms, the alkaline and acid salts removal, and dead and sick cells removal. Cadaveric acid is terrible, one of the worst poisons. So it's a great book, again, published by the what I call the repository of true yogic science, the Lonavla Yoga Institute, and one of my favorite teachers, he's no more, M.L. Garote, but now his son, M.M. Garote, is running it. Fasting is another great way of purifying your body. People don't understand it, how important it is, but there are many different fasts. It's a whole science: water fast, urine fast, dry fast, cascade style fasting, very difficult. 9 processes which are activated by fasting, and in very great importance of proper fast breaking and regenerative diet which one should follow. There are certain stages of fast which one needs to learn how to properly read it and move on with, and 9 specific physiological mechanisms during fastings. Autolysis is one of the most important natural factors that we have within our body. We can use to remove the obstructions from our body. So as the effect of the purification goes on and you purify your body, look what state of being you can attain: unexpected and total rejuvenation, all-encompassing feeling of unusual lightness and fullness of health, experience of overall contentment, bliss, and perfection, and feeling of unusual vitality and energy. I found very similar verse in Hatha Pradipika. That's the result of successfully performing all the Hatha yogic practices when you are on the verge of moving into Raja Yoga from Hatha Yoga. My speaker before me identified Maha Yoga as a process which encompasses 4 yogas. So we will not go more into that. So this is the state which is promised after Ashtanga Kriyas. There are many miraculous results I could quote from many different so-called blue spheres they identified around the world, blue spheres of longevity people, extremely healthy people like Caucasus Mountains, Hunza people who that part is right now in Pakistan, northeast Pakistan, and so forth. But I believe I have gone over my time, so I have to end here. Here is a summary slide, and you can take a look at that. And I end my time now to any of the questions you might have. I understand I have covered quite a bit of science, quite a few sciences here, but I wanted to make sure that you will be aware of all these angles that we can look at health. And of course, if you would lead that kind of lifestyle, your immunity system would be so perfect, would be having such high performance that COVID-19 or any other bug, parasite, or whatever it might be will not touch you at all. So just by inner practice, inner yogic approach, you can create immense change in the standard of living, in the health of your body. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. So this session is also open to the question and answers. If anyone has any question, you can go ahead. Anyone? Okay, sir. Since the session is streaming live on YouTube also, we have received a question from Dr. Anil Temburne. So his question is, how can we develop our personality through Surya Namaskar? So I request you to answer this question.
All right. Well, Surya Namaskar has all the components of yoga in one practice. You know, actually, it is not like you have to practice hundreds of various techniques that yoga has to offer, can offer. If you rather master one practice, then you are able to obtain the benefits of yoga. So look at the components as I was discussing briefly in the beginning. There are physical components. If you start developing and grow your stamina to perform at dynamic level, where the performance of the body is absolutely at the top level. In order to accomplish that, your psyche has to join. So your health has to be top. Your physical performance is at the top. I've experienced it directly, and your mental capacity, your emotional capacity, your focusing power is absolutely at the top. You have to adjust your eating habits. Your principle of Mitahara must be strictly obeyed, just like high performance, just like an opera singer or any sportsman of high accomplishments. So all features of the human being are tackled by Surya Namaskar, simply because it has all the components to adhere to it. Of course, you can do at level 1, most people would do probably at level 2, where you combine breath with the body movement. That is also fine, and it's also fine if you are able to just accomplish 108 Surya Namaskar. But if you are able to move into higher levels, you will be at the peak of the general, you might say, achievement that your body, your whole psychology can have in this lifetime. So this is in short. This is in short response to these questions, because details would be so many. You know, I have tried to bring it all together on 300 pages of my book that I presented the cover there. I don't feel we have time to go into such great detail.
Thank you, sir. It's very well known that all good things must come to an end. So towards the end of the session, I invite Neeta Rathore madam to propose the formal vote of thanks. Rathore madam.
Stop presenting, Steck sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm trying to stop new share. How do I stop this?
Very nice session, sir. I must acknowledge.
Yes. Let's see if I can manage. I'm not familiar, you know, with this.
Stop screen share. Only you have to stop screen share.
Oh, maybe like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a very nice session.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am? First of all, I am very happy to say that this year we are celebrating the Golden Jubilee year of our college. Today, we all are here on this virtual platform of Zoom to attend the international webinar. Many participants from around the world have participated in this webinar. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank our patron, Shri Dineshji Banjari sir, President of Santaji Shikshan Vikas Sanstha, for inspiring us and making this possible. Thank you so much, sir. Similarly, I would like to thank Shri Ram Banjari sir, Vice President of Santaji Shikshan Vikas Sanstha, Nagpur. I extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sanjay Dubey sir, Vice Chancellor of RTM Nagpur University, who inaugurated today's webinar and for taking time to guide us through this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. I am very much grateful to the first expert speaker, H. Lucy Guest, for their valuable guidance. She has stated the importance of yoga in our day-to-day life, and especially during and after COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you, ma'am. Our second expert speaker of this webinar, Dr. Christoph Sack, stated the importance of proper diet and Ashtanga Kriyas in human life. I extend my heartfelt thanks for his words of wisdom. Thank you, sir. I am also thankful to Principal Dr. Ashwin Chandel, Dr. Samir Pahune, Manish Agrawal from Noida, Syed Amesha, Sanjeev Dhiman, Raghunath P. from Kerala, Swet Raj Parikh from Jaipur, Santosh Kumar Mahato from Jharkhand, Dr. Amit Temburne, Manoj Lillare, Meena Balpande, Saumitra Samanta, Kailash Tiwari from Rajasthan, Dr. Anand Raipure, Krishna Rao, Dr. Anil Karwande, Principal Dr. Chandrasekhar Kumbhare, Dr. Praveen Kumar, Mustafa Hakimuddin, Dr. Amit Kushwaha for joining this session. Thank you all. The organizer and guide of today's international webinar, the Honorable Principal of our college, Dr. Priya Banjari Madam, guided and supported us for the success of this webinar. I thank them for their great support to us. Thank you, Madam. I am also grateful to HOD of Physical Education Department, Dr. Sanjay Khalatkar sir, the organizing secretary of this webinar, for his guidance. Thank you, sir. I would like to congratulate and thank Swati Gade ma'am for anchoring this webinar very well. Ms. Nisha Sharma ma'am, who successfully and very well done vote of thanks for the first session. I thank them also. I am also thankful to all the participants who are present for this webinar. And lastly, I would like to thank the entire teaching and non-teaching staff of Santaji Mahavidyalaya and all those who directly and indirectly contributed for the hugest success of this international webinar. I would like to convey to all the participants that the link for the feedback form will be provided just after the webinar on WhatsApp group. Lastly, on behalf of organizers, with this formal vote of thanks, this webinar comes to an end. Thank you.